Welcome to the Deep Dive. We asked you to send in material looking at how, well, those little everyday choices we all make might actually tell us something big about the economy.
Yeah, and the stuff you sent in articles, observations, all sorts really highlights this interesting idea of unofficial indicators, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a totally different way to look at things than just the official stats we usually hear about.
Right. Who'd have thought lipstick or whether you pack a lunch could be so revealing? It's about those subtle shifts.
Exactly. So that's our mission for this deep dive, using the material you shared to really get into how these maybe seemingly small decisions give us this unique, almost real-time feel for economic shifts.
Understanding the big picture through lots of small actions, basically.
Yeah. And one thing that really jumped out from the sources was this idea that recessions don't always, roar in. Sometimes they just sneak up quietly.
Through those everyday trade-offs people start making, the articles mention how we often picture these huge, dramatic events.
Right, but the reality can start much smaller. Like maybe you put off getting a haircut.
Or decide, okay, I'm packing my lunch today, instead of grabbing that usual takeout salad.
Or even choosing a, slightly cheaper lipstick brand. It's those little adjustments.
And crucially, one of the sources really hammered home the point about the lag in official data.
Oh, yeah, the whole 2 consecutive quarters of shrinking GDP thing by the time that's official.
Lots of people have already been feeling it for a while, making those very adjustments we're talking about.
That lag is exactly why these unofficial signs are so interesting, isn't it? They give you that earlier, maybe more gut-level sense of what's happening.
They really do. Think of them as like early warning whispers. They pick up on shifts in how people are actually behaving before it filters into those big economic reports.
Okay, so let's dive into one of the most famous ones, the lipstick index. Your sources definitely mention this.
Ah, yes, the classic. The idea that lipstick sales actually tend to go up during economic downturns.
Which sounds backwards at first, right? You'd think people would cut back on non-essentials.
You would. But the thinking is, it's an affordable luxury. When big purchases are off the table, maybe a, say, $10 lipstick feels like a manageable treat.
A little pick-me-up. And what's interesting building on that is some analysis suggests it's often classic, comforting shades that see the boost, not necessarily the trendiest colors.
Oh, that adds another layer, like seeking familiarity in uncertain times.
Exactly. That idea of emotional survival came up in the readings. A small thing, a splash of color in great times, as one piece put it.
Makes sense. It's less about vanity, more about maintaining a sense of normalcy or getting a small psychological boost.
And this cautious spending shows up elsewhere in beauty too, right? Salons seeing more cancellations.
Definitely. Your sources pointed that out, more cancellations, maybe people asking for cheaper services, stretching out appointments.
And that recession blonde trend on TikTok you flagged, that's such a perfect, visible example.
It really is. Letting roots grow longer to save on salon visits, it's practical cost-cutting made, well, fashionable, almost.
It shows how people adapt, doesn't it? And then there's the nail situation. Manicures are out.
But press-on nails are in? Yeah, one source mentioned Google searches for press-ons jumped, what was it, like 10% this year?
Wow. So swapping a pricier salon visit for a DIY, cheaper alternative, same underlying principle.
Precisely. Maintaining appearances, but finding more budget-friendly ways to do it.
Okay, now for one that definitely sounds a bit odd at first, men's underwear sales.
That one always gets a reaction. But yes, the material you shared points to a drop in sales being seen as a potential recessionary signal.
The first thought was, seriously, underwear?
I know, it sounds weird, but the logic is actually pretty solid when you think about it.
Go on.
Well, it's a basic necessity, obviously. But unlike, say, running out of milk, replacing underwear is something you can put off for quite a while if money's tight.
Ah, okay. So it's an easily deferred purchase, even though it's essential.
Exactly. And maybe it reflects a deeper level of financial strain if even those kinds of basic replacements are getting delayed. It signals budgets are really tightening.
And didn't one source mention Alan Greenspan, the former Fed chair, actually cited this?
It did, which adds a certain, credibility, doesn't it? If someone like Greenspan paid attention to underwear sales.
It suggests there's maybe something to it beyond just being a quirky theory. It shows how fundamental spending habits shift.
It really does. And speaking of fundamental shifts, let's talk lunch. The return of the lunchbox.
Ah, yes. Trading the $12 salad for the homemade sandwich. That's something so many people can relate to, I think.
Definitely. And the sources were clear. This isn't usually about a sudden passion for cooking.
No, it's about the money. Plain and simple. That daily lunch cost, it really adds up, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. When disposable income shrinks, saving that $10, $15, $20 a day by packing lunch becomes a really practical, significant saving over time.
It's that direct, everyday trade-off right there. Less takeout, more Tupperware. A small change with a potentially big cumulative impact if lots of people are doing it.
And we see similar adjustments in, say, leisure habits, too, like beer consumption.
Right, the shift away from maybe craft beers at a bar towards buying a cheaper six-pack at the supermarket.
Exactly. Your sources mention that pattern. People might still want a beer, but they're choosing the more economical option.
So it's less about the premium experience, maybe, and more about just having that drink, but saving some cash. Prioritizing savings.
Yeah, it's a move towards practicality. Still enjoying the thing, but in a more budget-conscious way. It reflects that broader belt-tightening.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to a more maybe historical indicator. The hemline index.
Ah, yes. The theory that skirt lengths somehow reflect the economy. Shorter in good times, longer in bad times.
That's the one. And the sources mentioned historical examples like the Roaring '20s versus the Great Depression.
Right. Now, is it still reliable today? Probably less so with fast fashion and just so many different trends happening all at once. One of the articles made that point.
Sure. It's probably not something you'd bank on now.
But the underlying idea is still interesting, isn't it? That our collective mood, maybe influenced by economics, could subtly show up even in clothing choices.
It's thought-provoking.
Yeah.
So when you pull all these things together, lipstick, lunch, underwear, beer, even hemlines, historically, individually they might seem a bit random, maybe even silly.
Yeah, they're not exactly scientific, are they? No single one is definitive proof of anything.
But collectively, the sources suggest they reveal a different kind of truth.
Exactly. A truth found in what people are actually doing day to day. These small individual adjustments driven by financial pressure or just caution.
They create ripples, and enough ripples, as one article put it, can signal a coming wave.
It's the convergence that matters. If you start seeing shifts in lipstick and lunch habits and maybe fewer people buying new socks and underwear, that pattern might tell you something earlier than waiting for GDP figures.
So the big takeaway then from this deep dive into all the material you sent seems to be that these big economic shifts we hear about are often foreshadowed by much smaller changes in our own routines.
Yeah, in our purchasing habits, the little trade-offs we make almost without thinking sometimes.
It definitely makes you think about your own recent choices, doesn't it? Have you, skipped the takeout more often? Put off buying something non-essential?
Maybe held off on that salon visit? It's possible we're all participating in these indicators without even realizing it sometimes.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Maybe paying a bit more attention to these everyday whispers. The choices you make, the choices people around you are making, could actually give you a more immediate, more personal sense of where the economy might be heading than just waiting for the official reports.
Keep an eye on those small details. They might be telling a bigger story.